Welcome to Mr. Foy's Easel. This program is mainly about a cartoon character named Claude Crow. He's a character that I created. He lives in the woods and he has a number of friends whom we'll meet along with Claude. Also, today we're going to be talking especially about Claude Crow's hat, as well as Claude and his friends. So let's look at Claude first, see what he looks like. Got a larger beak than crows in real life. He's a congenial fellow. That means that he's friends with lots of people. He gets along well with friends and family. He lives in the woods, and his friends don't live far from him. Now, as I said, we're going to be dealing with his hat, so I'll go ahead and put his hat on his head. It's a hat that he bought at a garage sale. It's kind of floppy, really brightly colored. His favorite hat. He liked to wear it just about everywhere he went. And let's give him some green stripes here on his shirt. Now, among his friends, he had a lot of friends, but his best friends were these, starting with a nice lady, Ms. Goose. Ms. Goose. Well, she didn't wear a hat, but she wore what's called a bonnet. Now, Ms. Goose was a very friendly person. She was a good cook, and from time to time she shared her home-cooked meals and desserts and so on with Claude and with other critters that they both were friends with. Going to give her some blue polka dots on her bonnet and a blue shirt. And just to round out the coloring a little bit, let's color her beak as well as Claude's and their feet as well. Well, Ms. Goose was one of Claude's friends. Another one is this guy here. Willie Weasel. Now, Willie always wore a little hat kind of like this. He had several. And I might say right now that Claude and his friends, they got together from time to time at parties and just visiting back and forth, as we say. I'm going to give him a red shirt. Now, one more friend, I'll show you in just a minute. Actually, two more. Another good friend in this group was a rabbit named Rodney. Rodney had big ears like a lot of rabbits do. Rodney didn't live very far from these other critters. And as I was saying a while ago, they got together for picnics. They went to the local store. Badger had a store not far away. But let me write his name up here. That's a rabbit named Rodney. The last friend I want to introduce is a real jolly old bear named Benny. You know, bears are reported to be kind of ornery critters, but Benny certainly wasn't like that. He was just as much of a fun-loving critter as any of these other guys I've introduced. Benny the bear. Now, actually there are two stories, and the focus was on this old hat that Claude insisted on wearing. I should tell you now that although Claude was very fond of that hat, his friends were not all that keen on it. Actually, they talked among themselves, like saying things like, "I wonder why he insists on wearing that ugly old floppy old hat." All right, now let's get to work on the picnic that these guys, all except Willie the Weasel, all except Willie, he was out of town that day, or out of the forest to be more precise. But the others got together for a picnic, and this picnic was quite a distance away through the woods in a little clearing near a small lake. We're going to take a break now, and when we come back, we'll have more to say about that picnic and about Claude's hat.
Home security is now available through Conway Corp. It's an advanced solution backed by people you know and trust. Customize your system with motion detectors, sensors, light controls, and more, all managed from your wireless touchscreen or mobile phone. It's an easy way to protect the things that matter and the ones who matter most. It's safety for you, powered by Conway Corp.
Well, they got their picnic things together. Each one brought some kind of food, like lemonade, or drink, like lemonade. They had a pumpkin pie and a lot of other goodies. Rodney knew more about the trail to the picnic area, so he was the leader of the group. And they set out. It was a rather warm spring day. And you know, even though this was a happy occasion, similar to get-togethers they've had in the past, these friends of Claude couldn't resist making sort of teasing remarks about Claude's old hat. "Why are you wearing that thing on such a hot day?" Miss Goose said. And the others chimed in and made fun of his hat. Well, Claude was a good-natured fellow. He didn't let it bother him. He said, "Well, nevertheless, I like this hat." Well, they went on through the woods, and after a pretty long walk, they came to the picnic area. I'll not go into details about the picnic and what they ate and so on, but after they were finished, they rested a while near this lake. Then they headed back home. Soon after starting their return trip, Miss Goose accidentally hurt a finger on a barbed wire fence they were crossing. It wasn't a really serious injury, but it was uncomfortable. She was uncomfortable with it. Well, Claude took off his big old hat and reached into it, and guess what? He pulled out a bandage, which he applied to Ms. Goose's injury. Well, that was a very fortunate thing. So they went on their way, and a few minutes later, Benny Bear, that is, began to complain of nausea. That means he's feeling kind of sick to his stomach. Well, Claude reached in his hat again, came out with some pills, and he said, "This should help you, Benny." even though they were very pleased with what Claude did for them, they still didn't particularly like that hat. But now to go on with further adventures of Claude, one day not long after this, Claude decided he was going to take a walk. It was a fine autumn day, and after a while he got a little tired, so he sat down by a large tree and he leaned back, and pretty soon he fell asleep. While he was sleeping, a gust of wind came up and it blew Claude's hat away. It just went rolling away from him, and when he woke up, of course the hat was gone, and naturally Claude was concerned or anxious about it. Where did my hat go, he thought. Well, he set out looking for it, and it was getting late in the day, and after 30 minutes or more, he decided he'd just wait and start over the next day. And the next day he was out renewing his search, and he ran into Willie Easel, who was back from his trip. And he explained what he was looking for, and Willie, who didn't like Claude's hat any more than the others did, he said, well, I'll help you look for it. Of course, that's what friends are for. And they looked and they looked, and they couldn't find it, and finally Willie had to get home. Claude was tired, but he said, I'm going to try flying. So, flying over the area, maybe I can see my hat better from up above. Now, Claude didn't do a lot of flying, but he did fly this time, and eventually he saw something red down in some bushes, and he swooped down to get a closer look. And he got up closer, and what he saw was some baby bunny rabbits asleep in Claude's hat. Well, he stood there for a while, and he was torn between decisions he might make. He really wanted his hat back, but these little bunnies were sleeping so well, he was hesitant to disturb them. So he turned around and was going to go back home, and as soon as he turned around, whom did he meet but Mrs. Rabbit. He didn't know her, but he had heard of her, and obviously she was the mother of these little ones. Well, Claude just chatted with Ms. Rabbit, complimented her on her fine little ones, and then he went on home without his hat. A few days later, Claude met up with 3 of his friends, Ms. Goose, Benny Bear, and Willie Weasel, and these 3 were really surprised when they looked at Claude's hat. It wasn't the old floppy, but it was a different cap, a new one. It even had the price tag on it. Well, Claude never did tell these friends about running into Ms. Rabbit and her bunnies and his old hat. He thought about it often, though, and almost a year later, there was a knock on Claude's door, and lo and behold, there was Ms. Rabbit, and she had Claude's hat. She had seen his name on the inside of the hat and had found out where he lived. So she brought the hat to him. She said, my bunnies are too big for this, but I thank you for letting them use it for such a long time. And Claude, of course, was very thankful, glad to get his old hat back. We may find out later on another story what his friends thought about this turn of events. Remember, you can contact Mr. Floyd's Easel at conwaycorp.com.